Alrighty, here we go, guys. I just finished watching the Hurricanes versus the Waratahs. I'm a little bit shook, to be honest with you. Not just because it's 1 a.m. here in Portland, Oregon, but I did not expect a scoreline of that magnitude. Now, look, I did tip the Hurricanes to win. A lot of you tipped the Hurricanes to win. Did we think it would be that emphatic? No, we didn't. Was this a case of the Canes being really good, the Tars not showing up? I'm going to be generous here and say it was more a case of the Canes showing up, really being on fire tonight, being animated. You look at the body language. They were pumped. They were enthused. They were out muscling the Tars at the breakdown all night. And, you know, I think that breakdown area was really lethal for the Canes. Not just Duplessis-Kariva, who's been very good all season, but he's been kind of toiling, a little bit of a one-man band for the Hurricanes. He had some more support. Braden Iosi had a great night tonight. And I think that just got the Tars on the back foot, got them a little bit rattled, and man, the Canes just smelled blood. Their defense went up a notch or two. They were absolutely smashing everything in sky blue tonight. Hey, we got a nice comment here. Mental aptitude, bruh. It's everything. From Radman, let's go. Yeah, you know, I agree with that. I think the top 2 inches were what really determined the outcome of this game tonight. I just don't know if the New South Welshmen were there mentally. Hard to say. Hard to say how much damage that game against the Reds did to them, because they started the season hot. You remember the Waratahs, they beat the Highlanders at home. They looked pretty tight to me in that game. They were getting a roll on, and then they just collapsed. They capitulated against the Queensland Reds, who historically have had their number. They really had the wood on them this year. I thought the Tars might keep tumbling. They bounced back against the Brumbies, but this was more heartache for them. I mean, that is a nasty scoreline. We're going to break down the game as we do when I have these live streams here with you guys. I'll kind of go through the key moments, talk about where the Hurricanes won it, got a roll on. But also, I do want to touch on a couple of factors, including an injury that didn't help the Tars. So I want to be clear on that. There were a couple of factors here that maybe blew out the score a little bit more, but with the form that these teams were in, look, I don't care if it was in Sydney, Wellington, or Timbuktu, there was going to be no other result today except for the Canes winning. Emphatic statement made. The Canes have the Blues next week. Now, that's pretty interesting. Now, the Blues had a bye this weekend. That's pretty well timed. I think they needed to lick their wounds after that absolute pasting that they got from the Crusaders. Did you guys see Blues Crusaders? It was boys against men. And I grew up in Auckland, so, you know, I have a soft spot for the Blues. I love the Blues, but I got to call it as I see it. The Blues were annihilated by the Crusaders, who weren't even in top form that day. Speaking of form, like, are the Canes going to keep trending up now that the All Blacks are blooded back in? Was this a really good day at the office and they're going to blow hot and cold, a bit like the Wellington weather? Let's talk about that in the chat. Because the Canes have snuck into the top 6 now, which I predicted. I felt with the All Blacks cavalry arriving, they would climb up the ladder a bit. Will it continue? We'll talk about that. We'll talk about what they can replicate from this game. But let's go back to the very beginning. It was actually the Waratahs that started with a bit of a hiss and a roar. In the 3rd minute, there was a try to Lawson Crichton, the number 10. And what happened was Asafo Aumua, he was actually caught holding on. He was holding on to the ball in contact. So Tars went for the corner. They said, hey, we're going to signal our intentions here. Not here to... Can I say that on YouTube? I'll say a slightly more polite version. We're not here to screw spiders. There's a much more profane version of that. But anyway, you know what I'm trying to say. We want to score tries, okay? We're not just here to kick 3. We're not going to beat the Canes kicking 3. No. We need 7. So they kicked for the corner. And honestly, they made it look too easy. I mean, the Hurricanes were kind of vulnerable in the middle. Ultimately, the simplest try, 9 feeding 10. But the damage was done by Taniela Tupou. I did draw attention to him, the Wallaby front rower. This guy's got well over 50 caps for the Wallabies now. Remember when he was Tongan Thor? We all watched his highlights on YouTube. Man, he's come a long way. He's not a boy anymore. Big boy he was, my God. He's a man, a hulking man, a gigantic man. And look, he played pretty well tonight. He was pretty good in general play. Not sure that he's an 80-minute man, but he looks like he's got a lot in the tank. You have to think he'll be showing up against the Lions for the Wallabies later this year. But yeah, he kind of smashed into that gain line, and that laid the foundation for 9 to just snipe, get the ball out to 10. So the Tars were on the board pretty early, but the Hurricanes did hit back in the 7th minute. We got a comment here. The Canes needed that performance. Bro, they really did. You know, it was disappointing how they went down to the Crusaders. And then, honestly, they were even disappointing when they beat the Highlanders. Yeah, they got the win in Dunedin, but my God, you know, they only won because the attempted drop goal from the Highlanders didn't go over at the end. If that drop goal had gone over, they would have lost. So they won by a narrow margin. They didn't have the killer finishing in those aforementioned games. Well, today the floodgates opened. They were finishing, in particular in this try here in the 7th minute, and that was Hohepa, who flicked the ball on beautifully after drawing his man in, and then you had Kenny Naholo finishing off from a Ruben Love pass. Like a swarm of bees. Oh. Are we back? I think we're back, guys. We just had a little technical glitch there with OBS Studio. Let me know in the comments if you still see me here. I think I'm on the screen. I see myself. I'm glitching out like the Waratahs defense was. Right? I mean, the Tars D, it started to go to sleep by about the 10th minute. But I made a note that the Canes looked like a swarm of bees. And what I mean by that is they were just coming from all angles. There were so many players in motion when they attacked. Few set moves that absolutely cut the Waratahs to pieces. And really, it was just so much play action and so many options around each ball carrier. And that was really the mark of this Hurricanes performance. You never knew quite which way the ball was going to go. There were options inside and outside the ball carrier invariably. A lot more in the way of attacking options than we've seen so far. It just looked like there were more Hurricanes on the field than we've seen in past weeks. That's a sign that the ball's getting recycled quickly, the players are back on their feet, and they're assuming position. Assuming position to attack. Screw Spiders. Should have said what you wanted to say, Jay, but still awesome comment, I think. Well, look, normally I would have said a word that rhymes with ruck and starts with F. We're not here to ruck Spiders. Let's go with that. That's more YouTube friendly. Hey, guys, so a few minutes later, the Tars were attacking in the 22, and guess who turned the ball over? Guess who jackled it? You don't get any points for this because it's kind of obvious. It was Duplessis Karifi. He's been affecting turnovers all year for the Hurricanes, and you just feel he might be playing his way into a black jersey. So a nice little turnover there. And putting on the heat at the breakdown, which was definitely a theme here. Speaking of feeling the heat, though, the Tars picked up an injury, and I was sorry to see it because it was Max Jorgensen, who's playing very well. And you'd have to think will be showing up for the Wallabies if he's fit. Don't know how serious the injury was. He looked in real pain. I mean, speaking of F-bombs, he let out a big F-bomb. He was punching the ground. He was in agony. His heel, his ankle just got cleaned out, unfortunately. And, yeah, you know, just... hope he's okay. Hope he's okay. It looked pretty rough. So that was in the 13th minute, so a bit of a reshuffle for the back line there. But in the 17th minute, the Canes, they got a scrum. They were 5 meters out from the Waratahs try line, and they just went with the pick and go. They applied pressure. They got the advantage, and then wouldn't you know it, Love to Naholo again. So that wing fullback combo was absolutely tearing up the New South Welshman. Hohepa did miss the conversion. I had a look at his stats. He's been kicking at 61%. So not really an elite level there, you know? And that worries me. So I do want to sound a couple of notes of caution here. It's all very good and well when the attack clicks like it did tonight for the Hurricanes. We've seen this throughout their history. They've always had amazing backline players, including some of the great legends of All Black Rugby. Legends like Jonah Lomu, Christian Cullen, Tana Umaga, Ma'anonu, right? They've always had star power. When the game's going their way, they can blow teams aside completely. What if it gets tighter? What if the goal kicking is important? What if you need a drop goal? I feel that the goal kicking percentage is going to need to be a bit better. Hohepa was missing, and then even Ruben Love didn't look too assured when he took over duties later. So just sounding a note of caution here. I don't want to throw ice on this unbelievable, wonderful Hurricanes performance, but a note of caution there. Now, in the 20th minute, I just had a note here that the Canes were smashing into the breakdown. The defense was up. Sullivan in midfield absolutely cleaned up Joseph Suaalii, who did play well tonight. He'll look good in a gold jersey with a higher caliber of players around him. He was a little isolated at times tonight. A couple of great defensive acts, though. Try-saving tackle we'll talk about later. But he didn't really get a chance to shine. He was getting smashed. And, yeah, I mean, just that tackle from Sullivan there, he just took Suaalii out around the knees. Clearly the Canes had made a note. Okay, we gotta double team this guy. We got to smash him as soon as he gets the ball. They were all over him like white on rice. So Suaalii, even though he looked strong, didn't get to fire too many shots tonight. In the 26th minute, the Tars actually got a pretty handy little turnover of their own. Angus Bell turned the ball over. Again, I think it was Asafo Aumua who got a bit isolated. So I don't know if I want to criticize Aumua for this tendency to get isolated. I think the problem sometimes is that he just takes off like a shot. I mean, for a hooker, he's got unbelievable acceleration. Sometimes he gets away from his support. That happened here. It didn't turn into anything too harmful, though. In fact, in the 31st minute, Isaiah Walker-Leawere for the Canes, he caused a turnover himself. And what kind of happened was the Canes were attacking, and then it turned into an ad hoc maul. I guess enough players joined in. There was a bit of a jumble of bodies. The ref said, it's a maul. And Isaiah Walker-Leawere, he kind of stripped the ball. He was on his feet. The Tar got into a bad body position. The ref blew the whistle. So interesting one there. Interesting one where you see a maul form, but there's only like 3 or 4 players. Interesting interpretation there. And look, at this point, I mean, the Tars were kind of already hanging on by a thread, even though the scoreline was pretty close. Desperate defense from the Tars. They stopped Punavai in the corner in the 33rd minute after Hohepa broke again. And I just made a note here. Good attack, good D. Quality play from both teams. Full credit to both sides. Turning up the intensity on the attack, but hey, man, the Tars were game. They were tackling well. But the floodgates would open. In the 35th minute, the Canes went in, and it was Aumua, that man I mentioned before, after relentless attack from Kenny Naholo in particular. Man, the ruck speed, the recycling was fantastic from the Canes here. And not just that, it was the variety. There were steps, there were swerves, there was pick and go. And then when they went wide, you know, Roygaard was firing out the ball like a bullet. And the Naholo-Love combo, pure magic, guys. Pure magic. But then we got the killer blow in the 37th minute. There was a restart. Tars kicked it long. Man, the ball hit the deck. It bounced up. The Canes were more alert to it. They ran the ball back. They counterattacked. It was breathless stuff. And ultimately, Cam Roygaard scored after that loose restart. So that was a nasty way to go into the break for the Tars. 24-7 to the Canes at that point, and with how enthused they were looking, you just felt like there was trouble brewing in the second half. Now, the Tars did strike. They scored early through Archie Saunders on debut, so congratulations to him. You know, nice to score a meat pie on debut. But after that, guys, I'm just going to run this down before we kind of get into the chat and hopefully have a little bit of back and forth and some comments here. 52nd minute penalty try. There was a yellow card, and the skipper for the Tars, Joey Walton, went off for, I guess, accidentally pulling down a maul. That's what happens when a back gets into a rolling maul. It doesn't usually end well. I don't think he cynically pulled it down. I think the poor guy was in there with the big boys, and he fell off his feet. Yeah, I mean, geez, the same thing would have happened to me. I would have been trampled like a mouse in there. So I feel for him. You know, as a back, this is why backs like me stay out of the mauls. But when you now go from 15 on 15 to 15 on 14, and the Tars are already under the pump, I mean, that looked pretty scary. Radman, let's go. He said, having a backline of class, it doesn't mean anything if your forwards are ordinary. Today, the Canes were in perfect balance. I love that comment. It was the synchronicity between the forwards and the backs. And what's the oldest cliche in rugby? You got to set the foundation up front. Well, the Canes did that today. Set piece was pretty good. Pretty even in terms of possession and territory if you look at the stats. It's not like they were camped down in the Waratahs 22 the whole game. I mean, man, there were some pretty sweeping counter-attacking tries. There were tries where the Canes kind of like went almost the length of the field and they were running it out of their 22. So it wasn't just like they camped out in Tars territory, but they were just consistently better at the breakdown, you have to say. They really had the edge there, and they were able to recycle the ball quicker. And when you have Cam Roygaard firing it out, you're laughing. So let's just keep going here. I'm going to kind of like roll through these pretty quick because this was a pretty relentless second half in terms of the Canes just laying on the tries. There was one nice bit of D from Suaalii. I wanted to mention this. He snuffed out a try in the 56th minute. Big try-saving tackle. So he showed his worth on defense there. But, man, 57th minute, the Canes ramped it up. Braden Iosi, he got front foot ball. And Ruben Love, man, he fired off a huge, maybe like a 30-yard backhanded pass from midfield. That winger Punavai finished it off. Absolute magic. In the 60th minute, Brad Shield scored. In the 68th minute, Bailey Sullivan, he chased through on a kick, man. He just had attitude. He got the ball down. Again, just the Canes were reacting a hair faster to everything. 78th minute, Naholo got his hat trick. I'm throwing these notes away. What can you say about the second half? It was total annihilation, 57 points to 12. So, now the Canes are in the top 6. Can they hold their spot there? Be very interested to see this game against a wounded Blues team last week. I think the Blues should be there for the taking. I still ask myself, though, if these Hurricanes can beat the Canes. If these Hurricanes can beat the Chiefs, rather, and can beat the Crusaders. They're the top 2 Kiwi teams. You know, I think they can put away the Aussie sides now that the All Blacks are back. I'm just wondering if they really have what it takes to go to Title Town. But let's not worry about that. For now, we're happy that they're in the top 6. And look, in terms of the All Blacks watch, Duplessis, Karifi, man, he's got to be playing his way into a black jersey. Ruben Love, too. He's not the biggest, but he brings some real X factor. Is he a guy you want in the mix for the All Blacks? He's Damian McKenzie-esque, diminutive of stature, but twinkling toes, amazing distribution, a lot of heart on defense. Ruben Love did some magical things here, and his draw and pass, the width of his pass, that was good to see. Kenny Naholo, I mean, he looks like he could play a decent hand at international rugby. Great hat trick tonight. Another guy who looked pretty good was Peter Lakai. He didn't catch the eye as much as Duplessis Karifi, but Karifi, you know, particularly being one of the co-captains, I mean, he's just been putting his hand up all year. He's having an absolute belter of a year. But Lakai and Karifi very much in All Black contention. Oh, we got a fellow here from South Africa, William. Good to see you here. He said he loves the Canes of old. He's from South Africa, but he loves the Canes of old. I hear that a lot, actually. You know, a lot of people loved that Canes era where Jonah Lomu was running around with Umaga. I mean, how do you not love players of that caliber? Ah, boy, what's next for the Tars? Back to the drawing board, I think. They need to really regroup. They started so hot this season, but it's really hit the wall for them. And look, I predicted this a little bit. I felt that the Canes might usurp them. They just did that on the ladder. I think they might have knocked the Tars out of the top 6. I'll have to check the log, but you felt that the Canes were trending up and the Tars were trending down. Well, 57-12 tells you that gut feeling is absolutely correct. Well, guys, I might wrap it up there, keep it kind of short and sweet tonight. I saw Mickey 17 earlier. I do not recommend that film personally. Robert Pattinson was excellent, beautiful cinematography, great world. If you like sci-fi, you might like it. I found this game a bit more entertaining than that movie. It lifted my spirits a bit more as a Kiwi. It was good to see some All Blacks running around, hitting top form. But guys, leave a comment below. Let me know where you think the Canes are heading next. Are they in title contention after this? Was this such a statement performance that you feel confident that they can keep climbing that ladder? They're going to stay in the middle of the pack? They're going to drop back down. Love to hear your thoughts. Guys, thanks for joining me. I'll be back for a full recap of the weekend of Super Rugby very soon. But I always love to be here live with you. Thank you for commenting. Thank you for chatting. I love you guys. Please like. Please subscribe. I'll be back for another one very soon. Take it easy. Bye for now.